The knife blade was inches from my throat when I realized falling in love with dangerous man wasn't a romantic fantasy I'd imagined. Blood was pounding in my ears. My hands were zip-tied behind my back. And the man holding the weapon was smiling like he'd already won. But here's what he didn't know. Here's what none of them knew. I wasn't a scared kitchen assistant they thought they could break. I was a woman who'd survived poverty, loss, and years of being invisible. And I'd be damned if I'd let anyone take away the one thing I'd finally found. Love worth fighting for. Have you ever taken a chance on something that terrified you? Ever said yes when every logical bone in your body screamed no? Ever met someone who saw potential in you that you'd stopped seeing in yourself? That moment when opportunity knocks, but you're so buried under survival that you almost miss it? When someone looks past your circumstances and sees your soul. I was invisible. A broke kitchen assistant scrubbing other people's dreams off dirty pans, while mine died a little more each day. 24 years old with talent rotting in my hands, because life had other plans. Because family needed me more than I needed my future. Because sometimes being a good daughter means killing who you could have been. Until one night, one emergency, one plate of Korean side dishes changed everything. Until a man with eyes like dark fire tasted my kimchi and decided I was worth obsessing over. But when his dangerous world collided with my simple life, when enemies saw me as a weakness they could exploit, when loving him meant everyone I care about became a target, I had to choose. Run to safety or fight for a love that could destroy us both. Walk away from the first person who ever saw me or risk watching my family pay the price for my happiness. This is the story of how food became my destiny, how a Korean Mafia boss became my home, and how I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone fight with you instead of for you. Before we dive deeper into the story, I want to know something. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments, because I love seeing how far these stories travel. And listen, if you're new here, you just stumbled into a growing family of people who believe in love that conquers, dreams that refuse to die, and second chances that change everything. Hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button if you're already feeling this story. And share this with someone who needs to remember that their current chapter isn't their final destination. Trust me, you don't want to miss where this is going. Now let's get back to how a kitchen assistant became the obsession of Seattle's most dangerous man. The rain hammered against the kitchen windows of the Pearl Dragon like it was trying to break through. 12 hours into my shift, and my hands looked like prunes that had given up on life. Every finger ached. My feet screamed with each step. The industrial lights made everything look sickly and desperate, which was exactly how I felt. This wasn't the life I dreamed about back in Lagos when I'd gotten that acceptance letter. Full scholarship to California Culinary Institute. My mother had cried happy tears. My grandmother had held my face in her weathered hands and said, "You will cook for the world. My lovely, you will tell our stories through food." But that was before Mom collapsed at the market. Before the doctor said she needed surgery we couldn't afford. Before I had to choose between my future and her life. Turns out that's not really a choice at all. You defer the scholarship. You get a job. You send money home. You tell yourself it's temporary. And then temporary becomes a year. Then 2. Then 3. And suddenly you're 24 years old scrubbing carbonized food off sauté pans while other people's creativity becomes other people's success stories. I existed in the space between the dish pit and the walk-in cooler. Invisible. Just the African girl who showed up on time, worked hard, never complained, and left no impression whatsoever. The cooks didn't know my name. They called me Dish Girl, or just pointed when they needed something cleaned. I'd become so good at being invisible that sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the stainless steel and not recognize myself. The kitchen was chaos that Tuesday night. Head chef Marcel was screaming in French at a sous chef who'd oversalted something. Tickets were flying out of the printer faster than the line could keep up. And I was in my corner, in my world of dirty dishes and broken dreams, when everything changed. Marcel burst through the doors looking like a man who'd just seen his own death. His face was the color of the tomato confit he'd been preparing. Sweat poured down his temples despite the kitchen's air conditioning. "Where's Antoine? Where is Antoine?" His voice had a pitch that made everyone freeze. The sous chef spoke quietly, like he was delivering news of a funeral. "He's gone, chef. Food poisoning. Left 20 minutes ago. Won't be back tonight." I watched Marcel's face cycle through every stage of panic, and I knew, even before he said it, that something terrible was about to happen. The Hwang party arrives in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. This meal must be perfect. This is not just any client. This is Min Hwang. Do you understand what that name means? The kitchen went silent. Even the sizzle of pans seemed to quiet down out of respect or fear, because everyone in Seattle's restaurant scene knew that name. Min Hwang, the Korean businessman who owned half the waterfront, 17 restaurants, for nightclubs, hotels that redefined luxury. But that wasn't why people feared him. It was the whispers, the rumors about where his money really came from, about connections that ran deeper than business licenses and health permits, about what happened to people who crossed him. Marcel was pacing like a caged animal. Someone must prepare the banchan, the Korean side dishes. But who? Who? His eyes swept the kitchen, landing on each cook and dismissing them just as fast. Too slow, too inexperienced, too Western, too likely to embarrass him in front of a man who could destroy his restaurant with a single phone call. Then his eyes landed on me. I'd been trying to blend into the dish pit, but apparently panic makes people see things they normally overlook. He stalked toward me with the intensity of a man drowning and spotting a life raft. You're African, yes? Nigerian. Yes, chef. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. You said in your interview you can cook, that your grandmother taught you. Was that true, or were you just trying to get hired? My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was not my job. I washed dishes. I stayed invisible. I didn't cook in kitchens like this where mistakes cost people their livelihoods. But something in me, some spark that years of dishwashing hadn't quite drowned, flared to life. It was true, chef. My grandmother was a cook in Lagos. She taught me everything. Can you follow a recipe precisely, exactly as written? No improvisation, no creativity, just exact execution. Every logical part of my brain was screaming no, screaming that this was a setup for failure, that I'd embarrass myself and lose even this terrible job. But that spark, that tiny flame of who I used to want to be, it spoke louder. Yes, chef, I can do it. He thrust a leather-bound folder at me, like it was a bomb he needed to get rid of. Antoine's notes. The banchan must be perfect. Kimchi, namel, jiako, everything balanced, everything authentic. You have 35 minutes. Then he was gone, shouting at the other cooks, leaving me holding recipes and a chance that felt like holding lightning. I opened the folder with shaking hands. The recipes were detailed, precise, written in Antoine's cramped handwriting with notes in the margins. Kimchi, spinach namel, soybean sprout namel, jiako. These were Korean dishes, completely outside anything I'd ever made professionally. But as I read through the techniques, something clicked in my brain, something my grandmother had taught me without me even realizing the lesson. Fermentation. That's what kimchi was. Cabbage and radish and thyme and bacteria, creating something more complex than the sum of its parts. My grandmother had made ugba, fermented African oil bean seeds, teaching me how salt and thyme transform bitterness into something rich and deep. The ingredients were different, but the principle was the same. Respect the process. Trust the transformation. Balance. That's what enamel required. Vegetable seasoned precisely so bitter, salty, nutty, and fresh all dance together without any single note overwhelming the others. My grandmother's Ifo Rairo had taught me that, how bitter greens needed the richness of palm oil and the heat of peppers and the depth of crayfish. Different ingredients, same philosophy. Umami. That's what jiako delivered. Fermented seafood, intensely savory, almost overwhelming on its own but magical in small amounts. My grandmother's fish stews that simmer for hours until the flavors concentrated into something that made your mouth water just from the smell. I understood this. I understood all of it. My hands stopped shaking. I gathered ingredients from the walk-in cooler. Fresh vegetables, perfectly crisp, kimchi that had been fermenting for exactly the right amount of time. salted seafood that smelled like the ocean and possibility. And then I started cooking. The kitchen disappeared. The chaos faded into background noise. It was just me and the food and my grandmother's voice in my head. Listen to the ingredients. Lovely. They will tell you what they need. Respect them and they will respect you. My knife moved through vegetables with precision I didn't know I still possessed. Thin, even slices. Perfect julienne. Each cut deliberate and clean. The spinach needed blanching. Ice bath to stop the cooking and preserve the color. Squeeze dry and season with sesame oil, garlic, salt. I tasted it. Adjusted. Tasted again. There. That perfect balance where you could taste the vegetable's natural flavor enhanced by seasoning, not buried under it. The soybean sprouts needed to stay crisp. Quick blanch, ice bath, season simply. The kimchi needed to be at the right stage of fermentation. Not too fresh, not too sour. That sweet spot where the vegetables still had texture, but the flavors had melded into something complex and alive. I tasted it, my eyes closed, and I was transported to my grandmother's kitchen in Lagos. Different ingredients, but the same love, the same understanding that food was more than nutrition. It was culture, memory, identity. Home. 20 minutes in, Marcel appeared at my station, like a ghost I'd been dreading. He didn't say anything at first. Just watched me plate the spinach enamel with garnishes of sesame seeds and a small drizzle of sesame oil. Then he picked up a pair of chopsticks and tasted it. His face revealed nothing. He tasted the kimchi. Still nothing. Then the jiakko. His eyebrows rose just slightly. Where did you learn to cook like this? His voice had lost all the panic and gained something like respect. My grandmother, chef, in Lagos. I met his eyes even though every instinct said to look down, to be small, to be invisible. She taught me to listen to ingredients, to respect fermentation, to understand that balance and depth are universal, even when the specific flavors are different. Marcel stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, and maybe he was. Maybe I'd been so invisible that even standing 2 feet away, I'd been a ghost. Your grandmother taught you Korean cuisine? No, chef. She taught me the soul of cooking. The techniques are different, but the soul is the same. Fermentation is transformation. Balance is respect. Umami is depth. Those principles don't belong to one culture. They belong to anyone who understands food. Something shifted in Marcel's face. For a man who built his reputation on screaming criticisms, his single nod was a standing ovation. Finished plating. They arrive in 10 minutes. Then he walked away, and I was left with my hands still shaking, but my heart full of something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not arrogance, but genuine pride in work well done. I plated the banchan with care. Small dishes, each one a different color, a different texture, a different note in the symphony. Vibrant red kimchi, deep green spinach, pale yellow soybean sprouts, the dark richness of jiakko. It looked beautiful. More than that, it looked authentic, like someone who understood Korean food had prepared it with love and respect. I returned to my sink because that's where I belonged, but my heart was still racing, my hands still tingling with the memory of creation instead of cleaning. For 15 minutes, I hadn't been invisible. I'd been a cook, and it felt like coming home to a house I'd never lived in. Through the kitchen window, I watched the Hwang party arrive. 3 black SUVs pulled up to the entrance with the kind of precision that suggested military training or worse. They were sleek, expensive, with windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. The kind of vehicles that said money and power, and don't ask questions. Men in black suits emerged first, not getting out, emerging, like they were one organism moving with coordinated purpose. They spread out around the entrance with the efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Scanning, assessing, protecting. Then the back door of the middle SUV opened, and the man who stepped out made everything else fade into background noise. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, which was notable for a Korean man. His suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Definitely custom tailored, fitting his frame like it had been painted on. Dark hair styled with casual perfection. Features that were sharp and aristocratic. cheekbones that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that I noticed most, even from a distance, even through the window. Dark, intelligent, moving with a focused assessment of a predator who never stopped calculating threats and opportunities. This was a man who missed nothing, who forgot nothing, who built empires by understanding people better than they understood themselves. This was Min Hwang. Marcel appeared in fresh chef's whites, his panic replaced by the professional courtesy he reserved for VIPs who could destroy him. He personally escorted the Hwang party to the private dining room. 3 men in suits and 1 woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. But Min Hwang was clearly the center of gravity. The way the others positioned themselves around him, the way Marcel's entire posture shifted into deference. This was a man people orbited. The private dining room had windows that looked into the kitchen. I could see them being seated. Could see Marcel presenting the menu with explanations and ceremony. Could see the other guests nodding, tasting, murmuring approval at each course. And I should have looked away. Should have returned to my dishes. But I couldn't stop watching. Then Marcel brought out the banchan. Small dishes arranged beautifully on a black lacquer tray. He placed them in front of Min Hwang with an explanation I couldn't hear but could read in his gestures. Something about the regular cook being unavailable. Something about a substitution. Something that made Min's expression remain perfectly neutral. Min picked up his chopsticks with the casual grace of someone who'd been using them since childhood. He selected a piece of kimchi, brought it to his mouth, chewed slowly. His expression didn't change. Perfectly controlled. Perfectly unreadable. He set down his chopsticks, picked them up again, tasted the spinach enamel. Same neutral expression. Same controlled assessment. Then the jiakul. And this time, something shifted. It was subtle. So subtle that if I hadn't been watching like my life depended on it, I would have missed it. His eyes widened just fractionally. His hand paused halfway to setting down the chopsticks. He went back to the kimchi, then the enamel, then back to the jiakul. He was tasting them in sequence now, his focus entirely on the small dishes in front of him. He said something to Marcel. I couldn't hear it, but I saw Marcel's posture stiffen, saw him gesture back toward the kitchen, saw Min Hwang stand up while his guests were still eating, and my stomach dropped to somewhere around my knees. The kitchen door swung open. Marcel entered first, his face unreadable in that way that meant either everything was perfect or I was about to be fired. Possibly both. He wants to meet the cook who prepared the banchan. Every eye in the kitchen turned to me, still at my sink, still in my stained uniform with dish water, soaking through to my skin, still invisible except now I desperately wished I was. Now, Marcel added, and it wasn't a request. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I dried my hands on my apron. The walk from the dish pit to the private dining room was maybe 30 steps, but it felt like 30 miles. This was it. I'd somehow offended a man powerful enough to destroy the restaurant with a phone call. I'd be fired, probably blacklisted from every kitchen in Seattle. Maybe worse, if the rumors about his connections were true. The private dining room was elegant in a way that made my cheap uniform feel even cheaper. Soft lighting that was somehow both intimate and perfect for seeing food. Art on the walls that was probably worth more than my annual salary. A table set with crystal and porcelain that cost more per piece than my rent. And Min Hwang, standing beside the table, watching me enter with those intelligent, assessing eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense I'd ever built. You prepared the banchan. It wasn't a question. His English was perfect, barely accented, his voice deep and controlled. The voice of a man who was used to being obeyed. Yes, sir. My throat was so dry the words barely came out. I apologize if something was not to your satisfaction. If you'll tell me what was wrong, I can fix it. Where did you train? He moved slightly closer, and I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and subtle that probably had a French name I couldn't pronounce. The question caught me completely off guard. I didn't, sir. Not formally. I learned from my grandmother in Nigeria. In Lagos. One of his eyebrows rose just slightly. The only indication that I'd surprised him. Nigeria. Yes, sir. She was a cook. She taught me from the time I could hold a spoon. And yet, You prepared Korean banchan that tastes. He paused, and I couldn't read his expression, couldn't tell if this was anger or something else. Exactly like my grandmother made when I was a child, before she died, before I forgot what home tasted like. Time seemed to stop. The air in the room felt too thick to breathe. That wasn't anger in his voice. It was something else, something raw and vulnerable that didn't match the controlled exterior at all. The kimchi has the right level of fermentation, he continued, his eyes never leaving my face. Not too sour, not too fresh. The exact point where the vegetables still have integrity, but the flavors have melded into complexity. Most Korean restaurants in this city serve it too fresh because Americans prefer it that way. But you served it correctly, authentically. He picked up a piece with his chopsticks. The balance of heat and salt and umami is precise, not adjusted for Western palates. Actual Korean proportions. And the jiako has a depth that I haven't tasted outside of Seoul. How? I understand fermentation, sir. I was finding my voice, finding my spine. My grandmother taught me how living bacteria creates complexity, how time and temperature and salt work together to transform ingredients into something more than they were alone. The specific ingredients are different between Korean and Nigerian cooking, but the principles are the same. Respect the process. Trust the transformation. Don't rush what needs time. Min Hwang stared at me like I'd just spoken a language he thought was dead. Show me your hands. It was such an unexpected command that I complied without thinking. I held out my hands, rough from years of industrial soap and scalding water, stained from tonight's cooking, slightly burned from a too-hot pan I grabbed without thinking. The hands of someone who worked with them, not for show. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough that if I swayed forward even slightly we'd be touching. He didn't take my hands, but he examined them like they were texts to be studied, ancient manuscripts revealing secrets. These are working hands, honest hands, hands that have scrubbed dishes and chopped vegetables and stirred pots for hours. These are not the hands of someone playing at cooking. These are the hands of someone who understands that food is work and love and respect all together. He looked up, and I found myself trapped in his gaze. Up close, he was even more compelling. Not conventionally handsome in the way of actors or models, but magnetic. The kind of face that once you'd seen it, you'd never forget it. The kind of presence that made you want to either run away or move closer. And I couldn't decide which impulse was stronger. What is your name? Lovely Adeyemi, sir. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Lovely. An unusual name. My mother was very optimistic about my future, sir. She believed I'd grow into something worth the name. And have you? Are you living up to your name? To your mother's optimism? The question felt like it carried weight beyond the words. Like he was asking something deeper than he'd actually said. I thought about the dishes in the sink waiting for me. The dreams I deferred until someday became never. The life I was living versus the one I'd imagined. Not yet, sir, but I'm trying. I'm still here, still hoping. He studied me for a long moment. Then he turned to Marcel, who'd been hovering anxiously in the doorway like a parent watching his child take a test. I'm hiring her. Marcel's face went pale. Sir, Miss Adeyemi will come work for me. You'll release her from her current position immediately. I'll compensate the restaurant for any inconvenience. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact delivered in a tone that suggested arguing would be futile. Yes, of course, Mr. Hwang. Whatever you wish. She's yours. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. I don't understand. Min Hwang turned back to me, and there was something in his expression that I couldn't quite name. I own 17 restaurants in this city, Miss Adeyemi. Several specialize in Korean cuisine. None of them, not one, prepares banchan that reminds me of home. That tastes like it was made by someone who understands the soul of the food, not just a recipe. You will fix this. Sir, I'm not a trained chef. I wash dishes. Tonight was just one time, one emergency. I don't have credentials or experience or anything that would qualify me to work in your restaurants. You have something better than credentials. You created something authentic from instinct and respect for ingredients. You understood principles that most culinary school graduates never learn because they're too busy memorizing techniques. His tone left no room for argument. You start Monday at Hana, my Korean fusion restaurant in Belltown. The head chef there will work with you on technique and presentation. But your palate, your understanding of flavor, your respect for the soul of food, that's what I'm hiring. That cannot be taught. This was insane. This was impossible. This was everything I dreamed of and been told I couldn't have. Being handed to me by a man who probably crushed people like me for sport. A man whose reputation involved more than just restaurants. A man who moved with guards and had eyes that had seen things I couldn't imagine. I should say yes. Should be grateful. Should take this chance and run with it before he changed his mind. But something in his intensity, in the way he was looking at me like I was a puzzle he'd just solved, like I was something valuable he'd discovered, made me nervous, made me need to understand. Can I think about it? The room went silent. Marcel made a sound like a dying animal. The other dinner guests stopped eating and stared at me like I'd just insulted royalty. Or worse, insulted a man who was more dangerous than royalty because he operated in spaces where rules didn't apply. Min Hwang's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened, became more focused, like I had just become infinitely more interesting. You want to think about whether to accept a position as a chef at one of Seattle's premier restaurants, with a salary that I guarantee is triple what you make washing dishes here, because I tasted your kimchi and recognized talent. I want to understand why you're really offering this, sir. The words came out before I could stop them, before common sense could shut my mouth. Rich men don't hire dishwashers to work in their high-end kitchens because of one good meal. There's always a reason, always an angle. So either you're trying to prove something or you want something specific from me, and I'd like to know which before I agree to anything, because I've learned that things that sound too good to be true usually are. Marcel looked like he might actually faint, but Min Hwang's face transformed. He smiled. It was small, controlled, but genuine. The first real smile I'd seen from him. You're right to be suspicious. Most people in my position do nothing without calculation, without angles and reasons and expected returns on investment. He pulled a business card from his pocket. Expensive cardstock, minimalist design, just his name in English and Korean, and a phone number. But sometimes, Miss Adeyemi, people act on instinct, on memory, on the feeling of tasting something that reminds them of home, of comfort, of a time before everything became complicated and dangerous and calculated. He held out the card. My offer is genuine. No strings. No expectations beyond your work in my kitchen. Call me when you've thought about it, but don't think too long. Talent like yours, buried in a dish pit, that's a waste I'd like to correct sooner rather than later. Then he returned to his table, sat down, and resumed his meal as if the entire conversation had never happened. As if he hadn't just offered to change my entire life. As if this was normal. Marcel grabbed my arm the second we were back in the kitchen. His grip was tight enough to bruise. Do you have any idea what you just did? You questioned Min Hwang. You made him smile. People don't question Min Hwang. People definitely don't make Min Hwang smile. I was just being honest, chef. Honest. With a man who could buy this restaurant as a tip. A man whose connections run so deep that health inspectors find violations in spotless kitchens and business licenses get mysteriously revoked, and people who cross him end up leaving Seattle very suddenly. Marcel's face was pale. Go home, lovely. Think about his offer. And listen to me very carefully. Take it. Whatever he's offering, whatever his reasons. Take it. Chances like this don't come twice. And turning down Min Hwang a second time, that would be very, very unwise. I went home to the studio apartment I shared with my cousin Amara. For 100 square feet of cramped space in a building where the heat barely worked and the elevator was broken more often than not. Home. Or at least the place I slept between shifts. Amara was there when I stumbled in, still wearing my kitchen-stained uniform, still clutching a business card that felt like it might burn my fingers. She looked up from her medical textbook. Amara was a nurse at Harborview, working the night shift, studying for her RN certification. We were both chasing futures that felt just out of reach. Girl, You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened? I told her everything. The missing cook, the emergency banchan preparation, Min Hwang's reaction, the job offer, my response, all of it. By the end, Amara was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Then she started laughing, actually laughing until tears ran down her face, and she had to take off her glasses to wipe them. Min Hwang. The Min Hwang offered you a job at one of his restaurants as an actual chef, and you told him you'd think about it. She dissolved into fresh laughter. Oh my God, only you would make a man that powerful work for it. He's not that powerful, is he? Lovely, sweet, naive, lovely. The man owns half of Seattle. His net worth is somewhere north of $500 million. He has connections from here to Seoul that involve shipping, real estate, entertainment, and probably things we don't want to know about. And you told him you'd think about it. Amara set down her textbook and took my hands. This is it. This is your chance. The thing you've been praying for since you had to defer that scholarship. The door opening after years of it being slammed in your face. But why me? Why now? It doesn't make sense. Amara. People like him don't just offer people like me opportunities like this because of one plate of food. Does it have to make sense? Maybe he really did just taste something that moved him. Maybe he really does recognize talent when he sees it. Or maybe he has ulterior motives we can't see yet. But either way, you get to cook. Really cook. In a professional kitchen. Isn't that what you wanted since you were a little girl watching your grandmother? It was God. It was everything I wanted. But something about Min Hwang's intensity, about the way he looked at me like I was something rare and valuable, about the control power radiating off him like heat, made me nervous, made me feel like I was standing at the edge of something much bigger and more dangerous than a job offer. What if I'm not good enough? What if tonight was just luck? What if I fail and embarrass myself and lose even this chance? Then you fail in a real kitchen instead of over a dish sink. Amara squeezed my hands. Lovely. You've been playing it safe since you got to America. Working jobs you're overqualified for. Sending money home. Being responsible and practical and invisible. And look where it's gotten you. Exhausted and broke. And watch your dreams die a little more every day. Take the risk. Say yes. Trust that your grandmother taught you well. Trust that you're good enough. And if it doesn't work out, at least you'll know you tried. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about grandmothers and kimchi and a man whose eyes had seen something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself, thinking about what it would mean to step out of invisibility, to be seen, to be valued, to cook instead of clean. At 2 a.m, I picked up my phone and sent a text to the number on the business card. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but I typed the words anyway. I accept your offer, Mr. Hwang. When do I start? The response came within 60 seconds. Like he'd been waiting. Like he'd known I'd say yes. Monday, 6 a.m. Don't be late. And call me Min. I stared at that last sentence. Call me Min. Not Mr. Hwang. Not Sir. Min. The intimacy of first names. The suggestion that we be something more than employer and employee. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Told myself it was just how he ran his kitchens. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something much bigger than a job, that I'd stepped off a cliff and was either about to fly or fall, and there was no way to know which until I hit the ground or caught the wind. Are you feeling the chemistry yet? Can you feel the pull between Lovely and Min? The way one plate of food opened a door to a completely different life? If you're already invested in this story, do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me what you're thinking right now. Are you team take the job or team run away? And hit that like button if you believe in chances that scare you and opportunities that show up in the most unexpected ways. Because trust me, we're just getting started. This story is about to take you places you didn't see coming. Now let's see what happens when Lovely steps into Min's world. Monday morning arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. I showed up at Hannah Restaurant in Belltown at 5:45, 15 minutes early, because being late to your first day with a man like Min Hwang seemed like a bad life choice. The building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel, and minimalist design. The kind of place I'd walked past 100 times and never imagined being inside let alone working in. A woman met me at the door, late 30s Korean, with sharp eyes and the efficient energy of someone who ran on coffee and pure determination. Her chef's whites were pristine, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked me up and down with an expression that revealed absolutely nothing. Lovely Adeyemi? Yes, ma'am. I'm Chef Unipark. I run Hannah's kitchen. Min call me personally about you, which never happens. He doesn't call personally about new hires. He sends his assistant. He sends an email. He doesn't call at midnight and talk for 20 minutes about a dishwasher who made banchan that reminded him of his grandmother. She crossed her arms. So either you're extraordinary or you have something on him or he's lost his mind. Which is it? I made kimchi that tasted like home. That's all I know. Yuna's expression softened just slightly. Well, let's see if you can do it again. And let's see if you can do more than kimchi. Follow me. The kitchen was beautiful. State-of-the-art equipment gleaming under perfect lighting. Stations organized with the precision of a military operation. Everything clean and professional and intimidating as hell. And standing at the central prep table, wearing black chef's whites and looking completely at home in this space, was Min Hwang. I just stopped moving, because I hadn't expected him to be here. Hadn't expected to see him in chef's whites instead of an expensive suit. Hadn't expected the way my heart would skip seeing him in his element. I didn't expect you to be here. He looked up from the vegetables he was prepping. His knife moved with the kind of casual precision that came from decades of practice. It's my restaurant. Where else would I be? I thought you'd be in an office somewhere, running your empire, doing whatever billionaires do on Monday mornings. I'd do that too, but Hannah is personal, and you're an investment I'm not willing to leave to chance. He set down his knife. Chef Yuna will teach you technique and presentation. I'll teach you standards and expectations. Any problems with that? No, sir. I mean no, Min. Good. Then let's begin. The first day was brutal. I had cooking skills from my grandmother, but I'd never worked in a professional kitchen. Didn't understand the rhythm, the communication, the military precision required to execute service for a restaurant that charged $150 per person. I was slow, made mistakes, struggled with techniques that the other cooks executed without thinking. But Min was patient in a way that surprised me. When I struggled with knife skills, he stood beside me and demonstrated, his hands moving with practiced grace. Like this. Let the weight of the knife do the work. Your grandmother would have taught you this with different tools, different ingredients. But the principle is the same. Efficiency, precision, respect for the ingredient. How do you know what my grandmother would have taught me? Because good teaching is universal. Respect for ingredients, for technique, for the process. That transcends culture, transcends cuisine. He glanced at me, and I caught gold flecks in his dark eyes in the bright kitchen light. Show me how she taught you to cut. I demonstrated the technique my grandmother had used. Different angle, different motion, but effective. The result was the same, even if the journey was slightly different. Min watched carefully, his focus absolute. Interesting. The result is identical, but the approach is unique. Don't abandon what you know. Lovely. Adapt it. Blend your grandmother's wisdom with professional technique. That fusion, that's where innovation lives. He was a demanding teacher, but never cruel. When I succeeded, he gave a nod of approval that felt like winning an award. When I failed, he showed me how to fix it without making me feel stupid. And slowly, over hours of repetition and correction and encouragement, I began to understand the language of professional cooking, the calls and responses, the timing, the dance of multiple cooks working in coordinated chaos to create individual perfection. By the end of the day, every muscle in my body ached. My feet screamed. My hands were burned in 3 new places. But when I plated my first dish, a simple bibimbap that Yuna had walked me through, and Min tasted it, his expression softened into something that might have been pride. Good. Not perfect yet, but good. You're learning. Coming from him, those words felt like a Michelin star. The first week was a crash course in professional cooking. I arrived at 6 a.m. and often didn't leave until after dinner service ended at 11 p.m. 17-hour days learning to move efficiently, to communicate clearly, to anticipate needs, to plate with precision, to taste with discernment. My body was exhausted, but my soul was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. And Min was there every day, not hovering, but present, watching, teaching. His attention felt like standing under a spotlight, intense, exposing, impossible to hide from. He noticed everything. When I struggled with a technique, when I succeeded, when I was tired, when I was frustrated, nothing escaped his assessment. Why are you here so much? I asked him one morning when we were both prepping before the rest of the staff arrived. The kitchen was quiet, peaceful, just the two of us and the sound of knives on cutting boards. Don't you have 16 other restaurants to run? Business meetings? Whatever else fills the schedule of someone like you. I do. I run them. He didn't look up from the fish. He was filleting with surgical precision. But Hannah is personal. My grandmother's recipes form the base of the menu. And you're an investment I'm not willing to leave to chance. Is that what I am? An investment, among other things. His eyes met mine, and there was something in them that made my pulse quicken, something that suggested I was more than just an investment. But he wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. You're also a mystery I'm trying to solve. What mystery? How someone with your talent ended up washing dishes instead of running a kitchen. What happened, lovely? Between Lagos and Seattle, between your grandmother's teaching and the Pearl Dragon's dish pit. What broke? What went wrong that buried your gift under dirty water and other people's pans? The question was too perceptive, too direct. I focused on the vegetables I was chopping, on keeping my cuts even and precise. I came here for culinary school. Full scholarship to California Culinary Institute. Best program on the West Coast. I was supposed to start 3 years ago. But you didn't. My mother got sick right before I was supposed to leave for California. She needed surgery we couldn't afford. The hospitals in Lagos, they're not like here. If you don't pay, they don't treat you. So I deferred the scholarship, got a job, started sending money home. I set down my knife. She had the surgery. It worked. She's alive and stable now. But by the time everything was settled, I'd missed a deferment window. The scholarship wasn't renewable, and I'd already committed to supporting her recovery, to keeping my younger brother in school, to being the family's financial support since my father died. So the deferment became permanent. Someday became never. I kept telling myself I'd try again, save money, apply to other programs. But there was always another bill, another emergency, another reason why I couldn't risk losing steady income for the uncertainty of school. I looked up and found him watching me with an intensity that made me feel seen in a way that was both terrifying and comforting. That's how talent gets buried, Min. Not dramatically, just slowly, one responsible choice at a time, until you wake up and realize you become someone you don't recognize. Min was quiet for a moment. The only sound was our knives, the rhythm of chopping, the familiar comfort of kitchen work. Your mother, is she well now? Stable. The surgery worked. But she has medical bills that will take years to pay off. And my brother is still in school. And my father's death left debts I'm still covering. So I'm the primary support for a family I love very much who are very far away and who need me to be practical, not a dreamer. That's why you question my offer. Why you needed to understand the angle. His voice was soft but certain. Jobs that sound too good to be true usually are. And you can't afford to lose stability, even for a dream. Exactly. This isn't too good to be true, lovely. This is what you've earned through talent and hard work and your grandmother's wisdom living in your hands. He set down his own knife and turned to face me fully. And you won't lose it unless you quit or prove me catastrophically wrong about your abilities. Neither of which I think will happen. You're very confident about someone you barely know. I trust my instincts. They built everything I have, every restaurant, every business decision, every risk that paid off started with instinct. His eyes held mine, and my instincts say you're going to be extraordinary, that in 6 months, people will come to Hannah specifically for your dishes, that in a year, you'll be ready to run your own kitchen, that you're not just good, lovely, you're special. The certainty in his voice made my chest tight. When was the last time someone had believed in me like this? Had seen potential instead of problems? Possibility instead of limitations? Thank you, I whispered, for this chance. For seeing something in me I'd stopped seeing in myself. Thank you for not wasting it. For showing up every day ready to learn. For bringing your grandmother's wisdom into my kitchen. He picked up his knife again, but there was a small smile on his face. Now focus. That julienne is uneven. Your grandmother would be disappointed. I laughed, actually laughed, and got back to work with a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. By the third week, I was working the line during dinner service, not the main stations. I wasn't ready for that yet, but I was plating, garnishing, helping wherever Yuna needed me, and I was good at it. The rhythm of service, the controlled chaos, the satisfaction of sending out plate after perfect plate felt like dancing, like my body finally remembered what it was made for. Min rarely worked service, but he was always there, stationed at the pass, tasting every dish before it went out, ensuring perfection. His standards were impossibly high, but he never yelled. If something wasn't right, he'd calmly send it back with specific feedback on how to fix it. The kitchen respected him not because they feared him, though there was definitely an element of that, but because he demanded from them exactly what he demanded from himself. Excellence. He's different with you, Yuna said one night after service. We were breaking down our stations. The kitchen finally quiet after hours of controlled chaos. I've worked for Min for 5 years, watched him hire and fire dozens of cooks. I've never seen him this hands-on with a new hire. Never seen him show up every single day to personally oversee someone's training. Maybe he's making sure his investment pays off. Maybe Yuna didn't sound convinced. Or maybe there's something else going on. Like what? Like the way he watches you when you're not looking. Like the way he times his arrivals to exactly when you're starting morning prep. Like the way he smiles, actually smiles when you nail a difficult technique. She met my eyes. Be careful, lovely. Min Hwang is a good boss and a fair man, but he's also dangerous, and people in his world play for keeps. His world. I'd heard rumors about Min's connections, about businesses that weren't entirely legal, but I'd avoided asking directly, avoided confirming what I suspected. You're not that naive. You know what he is, what he's connected to. Yuna's voice was gentle but firm. Most of his businesses are legitimate now, but the foundations were built on less legal enterprises. Import-export operations that didn't ask questions. Nightclubs that laundered money. Protection services that were barely distinguishable from extortion. He's cleaned most of it up, legitimized what he could, but the people he knows, the favors he can call in, the power he wields. That's not normal businessman territory. I had suspected, but hearing it confirmed made it real, made the danger tangible. Should I be worried? Not if you're just his chef. But if you become more than that, if you cross the line from employee to something personal, then yes, you should be very careful. Because people who care about men become targets, become leverage, become complications in a world where complications get people hurt. She touched my shoulder. I'm not saying run. I'm just saying be aware. Eyes open, heart guarded. Don't fall for him without understanding what that means. That night, lying in bed, I thought about Min's hands demonstrating knife cuts, his rare smiles, the way his attention felt like being seen for the first time in years. And I knew Yuna was right to warn me, because despite every logical reason not to, despite the danger and the power imbalance and the complications, I was starting to care about Min Hwang as more than just my boss. Starting to look forward to mornings in the kitchen, not just because I got to cook, but because I got to be near him. Starting to notice the gold flecks in his eyes and the way his voice softened when he said my name, and the rare moments when his controlled exterior cracked enough to show the man underneath. I was falling, and I had no idea if he'd catch me or if I was about to crash into something that would break me into pieces too small to reassemble. The shift happened during the 4th week. I'd been experimenting at home, working with ingredients from both Korean and West African cuisines, trying to understand how they could work together instead of against each other. I brought samples to Hannah for Yuna and the team to try. Suya spice, on short ribs, kimchi with peanuts, gochujang mixed into a sauce with ground agusi, jollof rice techniques applied to Korean-style fried rice. Some combinations were disasters, but some were magical. That alchemy where completely different culinary traditions created something neither culture could have made alone, something new and exciting, and deeply respectful of both origins. Min had been away on business for 3 days. When he returned, he went straight to the kitchen where I was testing the latest iteration. Suya spiced short ribs with kimchi, serve over rice cooked with jollof techniques and aromatics, finish with peanut gochujang sauce that balanced heat, richness, and umami in ways that shouldn't work, but absolutely did. He didn't say anything at first, just picked up chopsticks and tasted, chewed slowly, tasted the rice, the kimchi, the sauce. Then he set down his chopsticks and looked at me like I'd just performed actual magic. This is extraordinary. It's probably too unconventional for Hannah, I said quickly. I was just experimenting, trying to understand how my grandmother's teaching could work with what you're teaching me, how Nigerian and Korean flavors could respect each other instead of fighting. But I know it's weird and maybe inappropriate, and it's going on the menu as a special this weekend. His tone left absolutely no room for argument. This is what I hired you for. Lovely. Innovation that comes from authentic understanding of both cuisines, not fusion for the sake of being trendy. Actual respect for both traditions creating something new. This is art. Really, your grandmother's teachings combined with professional technique and Korean principles. That's alchemy. That's the kind of food people travel across cities to taste. He picked up his chopsticks again. Make it again. Perfect the proportions. I'm calling a food critic friend. This needs to be documented. The special ran that weekend, and it was a hit, not just with our regular customers. A food blogger with 500,000 followers happened to try it and posted a whole thread about the revolutionary fusion happening in Hannah. Within a week, we were fully booked for the next 3 months. People were requesting my dish specifically, asking about the chef who combined Nigerian and Korean flavors with such respect and skill. Min took me to dinner to celebrate. He said it was just a casual meal to discuss menu expansion and my future at Hannah. Nothing romantic, but it felt like a date. The way he'd reserved a private table at one of his other restaurants. The way he'd ordered wine that paired perfectly with our food. The way he listened when I talked about my dreams with an attention that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. I want to open my own restaurant someday. I admit it over wine and perfectly cooked fish. A place that celebrates African and Asian fusion. That tells a story of global connection through food. That honors my grandmother and your grandmother and everyone who taught us that cooking is love. You'll do it, he said with absolute certainty. You'll have your restaurant, and I'll help you. Investment, connections, whatever you need. That's not necessary. You've already done so much. I invest in talent, and you're the best investment I've made in years. He paused, setting down his wine glass. But I'll admit, my interest isn't purely professional anymore. My heart stopped. What? I should maintain boundaries. Should keep things professional between us. Boss and employee. Mentor and student. That would be the smart thing. The appropriate thing. His eyes met mine across the table. But I find myself thinking about you when I should be focused on business meetings. Find myself looking forward to mornings in the kitchen more than deals that will make me millions. Find myself caring about your happiness, your dreams, your future in ways that have nothing to do with how much money you'll make my restaurant. Min, tell me to stop and I will. Tell me you don't feel this, whatever this is between us, and I'll never mention it again. We'll keep things professional. I'll be your boss. You'll be my chef. Nothing more. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching mine. But if you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, tell me, because I'm tired of pretending, tired of maintaining distance. I don't want, tired of talking myself out of something that feels more real than anything I've felt in years. I should have said stop, should have protected my job, my future, the stability I'd finally found. Should have remembered Yuna's warning about danger and complications. Should have been smart. Instead, I closed the distance between our hands. Let my fingers brush against his. I feel it too. The relief in his expression was almost painful to witness, like he'd been holding his breath and finally let it out. I was hoping you'd say that, and terrified you would. Why terrified? Because once we cross this line, everything changes. And my world, lovely, it's not easy. It's not safe. People who care about me become targets, become leverage, become complications that my enemies use to hurt me. His hand closed around mine. I'm trying to legitimize everything. Cut ties with the dangerous parts of my past. Build something clean. But that takes time. And until it's done, being close to me means being in danger. I know what you are, what you're connected to. Yuna told me some of it. The rest I figured out. I squeezed his hand. And I'm still here. You might change your mind when you really understand. When the danger becomes real instead of abstract. Then let's cross that bridge when we get to it. But right now, right here, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I smiled. Just don't make me regret it. I'll do everything in my power to make sure you never do. He stood, still holding my hand, and moved to my side of the table. We were in a private room, away from other diners, away from eyes and judgment. He cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing my cheek. Can I kiss you? I thought you'd never ask. He kissed me then, and it was nothing like I'd imagined, not controlling or possessive, but tender, reverent, like I was precious, like this moment mattered more than anything else in his complicated, dangerous world. I kissed him back, and it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been, like finding something I didn't know I was looking for, like the beginning of everything. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Min rested his forehead against mine. This changes everything. I know. My enemies will see you as a weakness, will try to use you against me. Then we'll be stronger than they are. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes searching my face. You're not afraid. I'm terrified, but I'm also sure. About this, about you, about whatever we're building together. I smiled. My grandmother used to say that the best things in life are worth being afraid for. That if something doesn't scare you a little, it's probably not worth having. Your grandmother was a wise woman. So was yours. Maybe they'd approve of this. Of us. Maybe they would. Min pulled me close again, holding me like I might disappear if he let go. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to see past the danger. For being stubborn enough to question my motives. For being strong enough to take this chance, even though you're terrified. He kissed my temple. For being exactly who you are, lovely Adeyemi. Don't ever change. If you're invested in their love story, hit that like button right now. And drop a comment telling me what you think. Are Lovely and Min going to make it? Is love enough to overcome the danger waiting for them? What would you do in Lovely's position? And make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to get intense. The happiness they just found is about to be tested in ways neither of them saw coming. Don't miss what happens next. Now let's see if their love can survive when the threats stop being abstract and become very, very real. The next 3 months were the happiest of my life. By day, I worked at Hannah, developing new dishes, learning from Yuna, building a reputation as an innovative chef who brought authentic fusion to Seattle's food scene. By night, Min and I navigated our relationship with careful joy, building something real in stolen hours between his business obligations and my kitchen shifts. We kept it quiet, not secret exactly, but private. The kitchen staff suspected. It was impossible to hide the way Min looked at me, the way my face lit up when he arrived, the way we moved around each other with an awareness that went beyond professional. But no one said anything. In Min's empire, people learned quickly that minding your own business was the key to longevity. I moved into Min's penthouse gradually. It wasn't planned, just natural progression. 1 drawer for my clothes became 2, became half the closet. My toiletries appeared in the bathroom. My spices invaded his pristine kitchen. My art supplies, because Min had asked what I did for fun, and I'd admitted I used to paint, ended up scattered on his dining table. Until one day I realized I'd been living there for a month, and my apartment with Amara was just storage. You should make it official, Amara said when I told her. Move improperly. Stop pretending this is temporary when you both know it's not. What if it falls apart? What if the danger catches up to us? What if his world destroys what we're building? What if it doesn't? Girl, you're already living with a man who looks at you like you hung the moon and painted the stars. Make it real. Stop protecting yourself from happiness you've already chosen. That night, I told Min I wanted to officially move in. His response was immediate. He disappeared into his bedroom and came back holding a small box. I've been waiting for you to say that. I had this made for you. Inside was a key, not just the electronic fob, to the penthouse, an actual key. Ornate, traditional Korean design, clearly custom-made. What is this? In Korean tradition, giving someone the key to your home is giving them your heart. It's a promise of forever, of choosing them every day, of building a life together. His hands were shaking slightly as he placed it in my palm. I love you, lovely. I want you here, in my home, in my life, permanently, not as a guest, as my partner, my family, my home. I love you too. The words came easily, naturally, like they'd been waiting to be said. And yes, I want this, all of it, forever. We made love that night with a tenderness that left me in tears. Men worshipped my body like it was sacred, traced every curve with reverent hands, whispered promises against my skin about futures we'd build and dreams we'd chase, and a life where we'd choose each other through whatever came. Afterward, holding me close, he told me about his plans to fully legitimize all his businesses, to cut the last ties to criminal enterprises, to build something his grandmother would be proud of, something we could be proud of together. It was perfect, too perfect, and I should have known that perfect things in dangerous worlds don't last. That happiness makes you a target. That loving someone powerful means their enemies become yours. I should have been more careful, more aware, more afraid, but I was too happy to see the danger coming. I was working late at Hannah, developing a new fusion dish for the spring menu, when 4 men in suits entered the kitchen, not Min's people. I knew all of them by now. These were strangers, Korean, with the kind of energy that made every survival instinct I'd start screaming, wrong, wrong, wrong. Lovely Adeyemi. The leader said my name like he'd been practicing. Mid-40s, expensive suit, scar running from his eyebrow to his jaw. We need to have a conversation. Eunice stepped forward, positioning herself slightly in front of me. This is a private kitchen. Leave, or I'm calling the police. And Min, please do call the police. They'll be very interested in the tax irregularities we discovered in this restaurant's books. Irregularities that could shut you down, cost everyone here their jobs, maybe even send someone to prison. The man's smile had no warmth. Or you could step aside, and we'll have a simple conversation with Miss Adeyemi. Her choice. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. Fine, but somewhere public. I'm not going anywhere private with you. Of course, we're not barbarians, just businessmen who need to discuss a business matter. They took me to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, public enough to feel marginally safe, private enough for a conversation that other people wouldn't overhear. The leader ordered espresso and settled across from me with the casual confidence of someone who held all the power. I'm Park Jae-sung. I run several businesses that compete with Min Hwang's operations. Congratulations. That has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you when you're sleeping in his bed. Park leaned forward. Min Hwang is a problem. He's consolidating power, legitimizing businesses that should remain in the shadows, disrupting arrangements that have existed for decades. This makes certain people very unhappy. People with long memories and short tempers. Again, nothing to do with me. I'm a chef, not a business partner. You're his weakness, and that makes you leverage. Park's smile was sharp as broken glass. Men like Min don't have weaknesses. They're too smart, too careful. But he's made you one. The way he looks at you. The way he's cut back on business trips to spend more time in Seattle. The way he's rushing the legitimization process, burning bridges with valuable partners because he wants to build something clean for you. You've made him soft, made him vulnerable. Ice flooded my veins. What do you want? for you to leave, tonight, disappear from his life completely, move to another city, change your number, become a memory instead of reality. He slid an envelope across the table. We'll compensate you generously. Enough to pay off your mother's medical bills. Put your brother through university. Start your own restaurant wherever you want. All you have to do is walk away from Min Hwang. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check. More zeros than I'd ever seen in one place. Enough to change my family's life. Enough to make every dream I'd ever had come true. All I had to do was break Min's heart and my own. And if I refuse? Part's expression went cold. Then we hurt Min through you. Maybe a kitchen accident. Hot oil is so dangerous. And you're still learning. Still prone to mistakes. Maybe your immigration status gets questioned. I believe there were some irregularities in your visa application. Maybe your mother in Lagos has problems with her medical care. Hospital errors happen. Maybe your brother's school has issues with international students. So many possibilities, Miss Adeyemi. So many ways this could go badly for everyone you love. I felt sick. This was real, not abstract danger, not vague threats. Specific, detailed plans to hurt my family if I didn't comply. You're threatening my mother, my brother, people who have nothing to do with your problems with men. I'm offering you a choice, a generous one, money for a clean break. Everyone wins. You get financial security. We get Min back to being the ruthless businessman we can predict and counter. Min gets to remember you fondly instead of watching you get hurt. Park stood, straightening his suit. 24 hours, Miss Adeyemi. After that, the offer expires and the consequences begin. Choose wisely. No man is worth dying for. And Min Hwang definitely isn't worth watching your family suffer. He left me sitting there with a check that felt like poison, and a choice that felt like choosing which part of my soul to amputate. I couldn't tell Min. If he knew, he'd do something reckless. Start a war. Get people killed. Maybe get killed himself trying to protect me. But I couldn't just leave without explanation. Couldn't break his heart without him understanding why. And I absolutely could not risk my mother, my brother, the family who'd sacrificed so much for me, who trusted me to be smart, to be safe, who had no idea I'd fallen in love with a man dangerous enough that his enemies would use him as leverage. I sat in that coffee shop for an hour after Park left, staring at the check, running through options that all ended badly, crying silent tears while Seattle moved around me, oblivious to my devastation. Then I made a decision, the only decision that protected everyone except me and Min. I went to the penthouse while he was at a business meeting, packed a bag with shaking hands, wrote a letter that barely made sense through my tears, and left before I could change my mind, before I could be selfish enough to choose my happiness over my family's safety. The letter tried to explain, tried to make him understand without telling him the truth. I said I loved him but couldn't live in his world, that the danger was too much, that I needed normal, needed safe, needed a life without looking over my shoulder. All lies, but the kind of lies he might believe, the kind that would hurt him without making him go to war. I left the ornate key on top of the letter, the one that symbolized forever, the one that now felt like a broken promise, like giving back the most precious thing I'd ever been given because I wasn't strong enough to protect it. I stayed with Amara, made her promise not to tell Min where I was, cried until I had nothing left, and tried to figure out how to survive with half my heart gone. Min called 17 times that first night. Then his driver showed up. Then Yuna. Then people I'd never met, all trying to convince me to talk to him, to explain, to come home. I refused them all, blocked his number, because hearing his voice would break my resolve, avoided everywhere he might be because seeing him would destroy me. On day 3, he stood in the rain outside of Mara's apartment building. I watched from the window as he looked up, his expression absolutely shattered. He was getting soaked, didn't seem to care, just stood there in the rain like he'd stand there forever if it meant I'd come down. Please, he called up, just tell me what I did wrong. Tell me how to fix this. Tell me what you need. I'll do anything, lovely, anything. Just talk to me. I wanted to run to him, wanted to explain everything, wanted to beg him to make the danger go away, Wanted to believe love could fix this. Instead, I closed the curtains and slid down the wall, crying so hard I thought I might break apart. A week after I left, the check Park had given me appeared in my bank account. Blood money. Payment for compliance. For breaking my own heart and Min's. For choosing survival over love. I stared at it for an hour. Then I donated every cent half to my mother's medical fund in Lagos. Half to organizations that helped immigrants and women in crisis. I wouldn't keep it. Wouldn't let them buy my compliance so completely. They could take my happiness, but they couldn't make me profit from it. I got a job at a small restaurant in Fremont. Nothing special, nothing innovative, just cooking, just surviving. Everything was gray, functional, empty. I moved through my days like a ghost, going through motions that meant nothing. Food had no taste. Sunlight had no warmth. The city I'd started to love felt hostile and cold. 6 weeks. That's how long I lasted before everything exploded. 6 weeks of dying slowly. Of watching my phone, hoping Min would call even though I blocked him. Of crying myself to sleep. Of cooking food I couldn't taste and smiling at customers I didn't see. 6 weeks of surviving instead of living. And then Min found me. I was closing the restaurant, alone in the kitchen when he appeared. I'd gotten sloppy. Stopped checking for his people. Stopped expecting him to keep trying. But there he was, standing in my kitchen like he'd materialized from my desperate hopes and broken prayers. He looked terrible. Thinner, like he hadn't been eating. Exhausted, with shadows under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. His suit was wrinkled, his hair messy, but his eyes were still sharp, still intelligent, and currently burning with barely controlled fury. You're going to tell me the truth. Right now, not the lies you wrote in that letter. The real reason you left. His voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant he was holding back something volcanic. Min, you need to go. We can't do this. Park Jae-sung was arrested this morning. His entire organization is being dismantled as we speak. His businesses seized. His associates rounded up. His threats neutralized. Min moved closer. So whatever he told you, whatever he threatened you with, it's over. Now tell me, what did he say? What did he offer you to make you walk away? My walls crumbled, just shattered. 6 weeks of holding everything in, of being strong, of protecting everyone. It all came pouring out. I told him about the meeting, about the threats to my family, about the check, about the impossible choice between his safety and theirs, about leaving because I couldn't watch everyone I loved become targets, about dying every single day without him, but believing it was the only way to keep him from starting a war that would get people killed. By the end, Min was shaking, not with anger at me, with rage at them. They threatened your mother, your brother, your family. His voice was ice and fire. They made you choose between me and them, knowing you'd choose them, knowing you'd sacrifice yourself before you'd risk the people you love. I couldn't let you start a war. Couldn't watch you get hurt because of me. Couldn't risk my family being collateral damage and problems they didn't even know existed. So you sacrifice yourself instead. Your happiness, our future, everything we were building. He cupped my face, his hands trembling. You beautiful, self-sacrificing fool. Did you really think I wouldn't figure out? Wouldn't hunt down every person you'd met within the days before you left? Wouldn't investigate until I found Park's fingerprints all over your disappearance? I thought I was protecting you. I don't need protection. I need you. His voice broke. These 6 weeks have been hell. Absolute hell. Not knowing if you were safe. If someone had hurt you. If you decided you were better off without me. Wondering what I'd done to make you run. And all along you were here. 3 miles away. Suffering alone because you were trying to be noble. Trying to protect everyone except yourself. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for being brave. For trying to protect the people you love. Just promise me something. He rested his forehead against mine. Promise me you'll never do it again. That next time, because there will be a next time in my world, you trust me enough to fight with you instead of for you, that you let me protect what's mine instead of handling it alone. I promise. If you promise not to die on me, promise to keep legitimizing everything. Promise to build something where we don't have to choose between love and safety. Deal. I've been working on it. Cutting ties. Burning bridges with anyone connected to criminal enterprises. Building something clean. His hands tighten on my face. I decided you were right. That being better mattered more than being powerful. So I chose better. Chose legal. Chose a future where you never have to be afraid of my past catching up to us. You did all that in 6 weeks? I was motivated. Motivated by the hope that if I built something worth having, something safe, you might come back to me. He smiled small and sad. Though I was also planning to show up at your door every single day until you either came home or got a restraining order. I laughed through my tears. Actually laughed. Probably would have worked by day 3. Good to know for future reference. Though there won't be a future reference. Because you're coming home. Right now. Tonight. It wasn't a question. Please. Come home, lovely. My bed is cold without you. My kitchen is empty without you. My life doesn't work without you in it. What about Park? The threats? Handled. Permanently. He won't threaten anyone again. And I've made it very, very clear what happens to people who come after what's mine. His voice went cold for just a moment, and I caught a glimpse of the dangerous man underneath the one who loved me. Your family is safe. You're safe. We're safe. I promise you that. Then yes, I'll come home. He kissed me then, right there in that empty kitchen, desperate and relieved and full of 6 weeks of missing each other, full of promises and second chances, and love that had survived being tested. When we finally broke apart, both crying, both laughing, both holding on like we'd never let go again, he whispered against my lips, I love you, lovely Adeyemi. Don't ever leave me again. I love you too, and I won't. I promise. We're in this together. Whatever comes, we face it together. We went home that night, to the penthouse that had felt empty without me, to the life we'd started building, to the future that had almost been destroyed but survived because we both refused to give up on it. And it felt like breathing again after 6 weeks of suffocating. 6 months later, we opened our restaurant together, a fusion place celebrating Korean and West African cuisines, telling the story of connection and collaboration, proving different cultures could create something beautiful together. We called it home because that's what it represented. Not a place, but a feeling. The feeling of being seen, valued, loved completely. Min proposed a night before the opening. Not with spectacle or public display, but in our kitchen, while we were prepping for the next day, both of us covered in flour and exhaustion and joy. He set down his knife and just said it. Marry me, build this life with me, not as my chef or my girlfriend, but as my wife, my partner, my everything, the person I choose every single day for the rest of my life. I looked at him, this man who'd seen potential in me when I was washing dishes, who'd fought for me when I tried to sacrifice myself, who'd changed his entire world to build a future worthy of us both. This man who made kimchi taste like home and looked at me like I was precious and believed in my dreams as much as his own. Yes, always yes, forever yes. The wedding was small, a blend of Korean and Nigerian traditions that honored both our grandmothers, families from both sides celebrating, Amara crying happy tears, Eunice serving as my co-maid of honor along with my cousin from Lagos. Music that mixed Korean drums with Nigerian rhythms. Food that told our story. Love that crossed every boundary and conquered every obstacle. During our first dance, Min whispered in my ear, "Thank you." For what? For being stubborn enough to question my offer that first night. For being brave enough to leave when you thought it would save me. For being strong enough to come back when I found you. For being exactly who you are, lovely, perfect and imperfect, and absolutely everything I never knew I needed. Thank you for seeing me. For believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. For building a world where we can just be happy without fear. For showing me what love actually looks like. What does it look like? This. Choosing each other every single day. Through fear and danger and doubt. Building something beautiful from nothing. Refusing to give up even when it would be easier. Fighting for each other. With each other, never against each other. Like home. Like home. I agreed, and in our restaurant called home, surrounded by people who loved us, celebrating the fusion of cultures and lives and futures, we began our forever. A forever that started with a plate of banchan that tasted like memory, that grew through shared kitchens and whispered promises, that survived threats and separation and fear. A forever built on the most powerful ingredient of all, love that refuses to quit, refuses to bow, refuses to be anything less than absolutely, completely, gloriously itself. Now listen, if this story touched you, if you believed in love that crosses cultures and conquers fear, if you felt the power of choosing someone over and over again, I need to hear from you. Drop a comment right now telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it when Lovely made banchan that reminded Min of his grandmother? When she sacrificed everything to protect him? When Min found her after 6 weeks and brought her home? When he proposed covered in flour? Which moment made you feel something real? Hit that like button if you believe in second chances and love that fights for you. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that their current chapter isn't their final destination. That being invisible doesn't mean being worthless. That one brave yes can change your entire life. And subscribe to this family, because we tell stories about love that defies odds, crosses boundaries, and proves that home isn't a place. It's a person. It's a choice. It's the courage to stay when everything says run, and the wisdom to know that some things, some people, are worth every risk, every fear, every impossible leap of faith. Remember this. You are never just anything, not just a dishwasher, not just a kitchen assistant, not just whatever job title you hold right now. You are a collection of gifts waiting to be seen. Your grandmother's wisdom lives in your hands. Your culture is your superpower, not your limitation. And somewhere, someone is waiting to taste what you create, to see who you really are, to recognize the talent you've buried under survival. Don't make them wait too long. Take the risk. Say yes to the thing that scares you. Question the offers that seem too good to be true until you understand them. But when you find something real, something worth having, fight for it. Don't let fear or circumstance or other people's expectations kill what could be extraordinary. Your season is coming. Your door is opening. Your person is looking for you. Stay ready. Stay brave. Stay hungry for the life you deserve. And never, ever let anyone convince you that you're not worth believing in, because you are, just like Lovely, just like everyone who's ever been overlooked and underestimated and told to be grateful for crumbs when they deserve the whole feast. You're worth it. See you in the next story. Until then, stay blessed, stay bold, and keep cooking up your dreams. They're closer than you think.